All right, y'all. So people have been asking and want to know, so why Valencia? How did we end up in Valencia in the first place? Why do we pack up everything, sell 99% of everything we own, and move a family of 9 to Valencia in 2016? So I'm going to tell you all about it, tell you the story, and stick around to the end because I'll tell you about the real kind of magical night that probably sold us on Valencia. And so stick around, I'm gonna tell you about it. Like around 2014, 2015, there was a 2-year period where Maya and I just felt like there was a change on the horizon. Something was coming. We were super happy in our lives in Austin. Things were going really well for us. We had businesses that were working. We had 2 bands we were working with, and things were going great. But we, as a big family, we were having less and less family time. So we were losing out on, you know, what we had as a broke, poor young family when the kids were little. And really, we just spent tons of time together. As they started to hit high school and become more active with their own lives, we had less and less time with them. Maya was just a glorified chauffeur, taking them to and from school, doing her own work. I was in and out of town. I would go in the morning into Austin from the suburbs where we lived, a beautiful dream house, right? And then I would come back in the afternoon, take a shower from work, and then we would be like, all right, kids, the pizza's on its way, and we would go into town for our gigs. So there was just a progression of time where we felt like there was a change coming, something needed to give. So then what? Well, we started thinking about where that would be. Would we move back into Austin proper, just get out of the suburbs and move into Austin? So maybe we'd have a little less commute time. Or would we move to Nashville maybe and try our hand in the music scene there? But always at the top of the heap for some reason was Spain, Valencia, Spain. We also specifically Valencia because we knew a musician who lived here. We knew about the Berklee School of Music. And for whatever reason, it was just on our radar. So we started looking into that. We also looked into the UK. Me and Maya are talking about this, discussing this, not sure what'll happen with it. And we start just trying to test the waters and see, making plans. And so what we did was, without telling anyone we were thinking about it, we booked a trip to Spain and the UK. And, you know, saying we were going on vacation, which we were, but we set up like a 12-day trip. Well, very quickly we realized that where we wanted to go and check out in England was just too expensive. And I think we kind of decided that it was just not going to be the change culturally, you know, a big change. And I think having grown up in Texas, there was always a big desire to learn Spanish for me. I've always wanted to become fluent in Spanish, though I grew up around a lot of it. We both did. And our small town was predominantly Latino. And I've always wanted to learn Spanish, and I wanted my kids. We wanted the kids to learn Spanish. So that was a big part of it as well. So we cut the UK part of the trip out of our plans, and we just booked to go to Barcelona, Valencia, and Madrid. Okay. Now, like I said, stick around because I'm going to tell you a story about it's still one of the most magical nights of like travel that we've had, but it also definitely was sold us on that we could live in Valencia. Okay. Hey, and if you like what you're seeing, please, you know what to do. Like and subscribe. All right. All right. So we land in Barcelona, Maya and I, first day of our vacation. Now, remember, we haven't told anybody that we're investigating moving to Spain. We just, you know, we said we're going on vacation. So we land in Barcelona, we get into our hotel, we go out for dinner. First night, we want to have la cena, dinner, and tapas, right? And we get to the first restaurant, and I try to start speaking my terrible Texas Spanish to order and ask about tapas. And the guy goes, "It's okay, I speak English." And I say, "Well, but I want to practice." And he goes, "Oh, no, you don't have to, I speak English." And it just became awkward to like argue with the guy. So over the time of our couple of days in Barcelona, we realized it's a gorgeous city. The people are wonderful, kind, lovely. But it's huge. It's massive. It's a big city, and we're not used to that. It also became kind of obvious that it might be tough to actually learn Spanish in a city like that where everyone speaks a decent amount of English. A lot of people want to practice their English, you know? So we've since learned that obviously you can live in certain neighborhoods, barrios, that are all still very Spanish, but as a person who doesn't know, it would take months and months to kind of find out where to live and do that. And more than that, it was just a much bigger city than what we were looking for, right? So then we take the beautiful train from Barcelona to Valencia. Another thing, being on a train like that, watching the Mediterranean go by on our left, it's just a gorgeous terrain. We get to Valencia, and our first night is just the most magical thing. And I'm not going to tell you the whole story right now. I'm going to save it for the end, okay? It really, was the icing on the cake. So we spend our weekend, a few days in Valencia, and when we travel, we've tried to learn to travel and hang with locals, do local things, ask local people, what life is like, and do local things rather than the touristy things, because it's just way better that way, right? So we spend our weekend in Valencia. It's obvious from the get-go that they're happy that we're trying to speak Spanish, right? So my brother lived in Mexico with his family for years as a missionary, and we would go visit, and I would speak, again, my terrible George W. Bush Spanish down there, and they would appreciate and be like, oh, yeah, I'll talk to you like a 3-year-old. Sure, let's go. I didn't even speak like a 3-year-old. But that was happening here in Valencia. Every story we went into, even in the center where people do speak enough English, speak plenty of English, we would go into the stores and try to speak Spanish, and they would work with us, and we would go back and forth, and it was really beautiful. There was also the fact that in Valencia, it's small, it has an international airport, it's well communicated, and it was obvious from the start that you could live in this city as a family of 9 without a car. Buses, trains, you can get across town in 20 minutes on a bus or the metro. A cab is even shorter than that and not super expensive if you're in a rush. So all of those things became obvious to us in just a few days here in Valencia. And man, when we left Valencia, we knew that it was possible, that we could do it. Now, we still had a lot of doubts. I mean, this is a dream we hadn't told anyone, because it's just a dream that seems too big to be possible, right? Not only that, but we had business things that had to fall in line. I mean, it was just, who knew if we could actually make it happen? So we hadn't told anybody. But then we're on our way to Madrid. So another train to Madrid, loving it. Beautiful country to pass through. We get to Madrid. It's just so big. I mean, it's like New York with an accent, a Spanish accent. We loved it. We really had a great time. We saw some great music there, caught some blues that was like killing, watching these Spanish guys play blues, really laying it down and doing a great job. That was exciting. But the longer we stayed in Madrid, the more we realized it was just too big for us. We weren't ready for that. It wasn't what we were looking for. And again, that just put us back looking at Valencia going, man, it's just so Spanish. It feels like a pueblo. We were loving it. But these 3 days, these three cities that we saw in Spain also told us we love Spain. We really learned how wonderful and kind the people are, very neighborly. A lot of it reminded me of how we grew up in a small town in Texas in the South in the 80s. That kind of care and politeness, thoughtfulness about the people around you. And as much as we got stared at and questions, we also had people help us, very friendly, all over Spain. So it really helped us solidify the fact that this was doable, it was possible. All right, so now we know this Spain thing is possible, right? And we're flying home. Can you imagine the conversations on this flight home, getting back across the Atlantic to Austin, right? So we get home, we have a trip on the books to go to Nashville. And so we take our trip to Nashville, beautiful city. Night one, we knew it wasn't the place for us. Nashville's cool. It's a different type of industry than what we're used to as musicians, and a different type of vibe as a city. It just feels different. It's got a lot of cool spots, but in our opinion, Austin has way more cool spots like that. And we're just Texas people, I guess, so I don't know. But it was obvious on night one that Nashville was not going to be the place for us. As much as we loved it and we hung out with a couple of friends, had a great time, it was awesome. So Nashville isn't the place. The UK is not the place. Spain looks possible. Our options are looking awesome. We do eventually decide that really just moving into Austin isn't going to change much for us. I think more and more we're getting excited about the idea of just a big cultural change and learning Spanish, being in Europe. I mean, to live in Spain and the access to be in Europe as a family of 9 and jump on a short, cheap Ryanair flight, and go visit Stonehenge and Paris and Rome. I mean, those prospects were looking super sexy to us, right? So time goes by, we start looking into the visa process. By we, I mean Maya, because she's the brains of the outfit, y'all. Now, at this point, we tell our kids, under absolute secrecy, kids, you can't tell anyone this, because we don't want things in our businesses to freak out. We don't want to freak our family out. Who knows if this is just a pipe dream or it would come true. Well, a couple of the kids are like, what? That sounds awesome. And then a couple of the kids in their teen years are like, Mom and Dad are going to ruin my life. They want to make me move away from my friends and all of that stuff. You know, so we're sensitive to all that. I mean, that's a big part of deciding whether or not we would move to Spain. Yeah. So then my brother comes over a couple weeks after our trip with his family, and we're showing off photos of the trip to Spain, and we're telling stories. We make tapas. Maya's made tapas for that night of lots of dishes we had eaten while we were in Spain. Beautiful, delicious. We're telling stories. By the end of the night, telling these stories, looking at photos, our one kid, who was the main one saying, no way, was like, when are we going? This sounds awesome. And flip just switched, as we say, switched the flip. It flipped the switch for the kids even. And that was a huge hurdle in us thinking, okay, well, if the kids are on board, then we're gonna go, all of us, into this with a positive attitude and not have anybody feel like we're potentially ruining their lives and their social life or whatever, right? So that was another big thing. So these hurdles are falling by the wayside. You know, we're thinking about it, praying about it, trying to decide what to do with our lives. Maya starts digging into the visa process, gets that sorted. But we still needed these other things to come into line. Our businesses, we were either gonna have to close down some stuff. We definitely couldn't do it without keeping our mainstay business in Austin rolling. But how are we gonna do that remotely? I mean, 2016 was a time where in the business that I have, you know, remote work is not something that's seemed even possible. But at this time, one of my brothers came available to help take over as a manager for us and run the business as a person on site. And that was just the biggest open door, and it allowed us to think we could do this. So we applied for visas. We put our house on the market. It was under contract in 3 days. Sold our house in 3 days. Then we have to get out of our house. Then we have to get our visas together, get everything done through the Houston consulate. And it all just really came together super fast. We applied in July, and in October, we were in Spain. It can even happen faster than that now, but for us as a family of 9, that was muy rápido. So all of that stuff happened in such a short amount of time. Like, as I said, the house sold in 3 days. We had years and years of stuff to get rid of. We were selling everything. We sold our house. There's nowhere to put anything. We got 9 people worth of stuff to get rid of. In about a month's time, we had to sell everything. So it was madness. It was madness. Then the house was sold, but we weren't going to Spain yet because our tickets were booked for October. We closed on the house in September. So we had a month where we lived with my parents, and that was crazy, adding 9 people to their household. They're so wonderful. I'm sure they loved it. So there's a lot of tumultuous times, a lot of anxiety for a few months' time, trying to think, wow, we're really uprooting our lives. How's it going to affect our kids? How's it going to affect our business? Are we going to be able to survive? Will we learn Spanish? All of those things and more going through your mind. And then we got to Spain. We found a place to live. We got our residency visas. We started adapting, and it has been a beautiful, beautiful journey, right? So I try to give you like a little bit of that information of how that journey happened. A lot of things fell into place, came together, and man, really, we just fell in love with Valencia. So why? What was that one magical night? What is the story that really clinched it for us, that really proved to us that we could live in Valencia and have a great time of it and feel at home? Well, let me tell you. So Maya and I, we get to Valencia, our first night in Valencia, on this vacation that I've told you about, right? We get into town, we check into the hotel, and then we go exploring, and we wander into this place that's like a curio shop, like vintage knickknacks and stuff, because I'm looking for my dad to find him an antique bowling ball, like an old French bowling ball, because he has given us these antique bowling pins. So I'm looking for this antique bowling ball for my dad. We stumble into a place that has it. I start speaking to the woman, Celia, who's behind the counter. Sorry, my Spanish is bad. She's oh, it's okay. I speak a little English, but you know. And I say, oh, intercambio, let's try. So we start talking back and forth and tell her we're visiting. We tell her we're thinking about moving to Spain. She says, where are you from? We go, Austin. She goes, oh, my husband lived in Austin for years. What? Yeah, he's a photographer and a saxophone player. He lived in Austin, knows lots of musicians. Wait, your husband played music in Austin for years? Yeah, yeah. So we start talking to them, get introduced to him. Turns out that he played sax with a dear friend of ours named Brandon Temple, who's a drummer from Austin, and they are like almost like brothers. So we're in this shop. We meet the two of them. There's Austin connections already. She's got the bowling ball I'm looking for. And then she goes, so what are y'all doing tonight? And we go, well, I think we're going to go take a nap. And then we're going to go to dinner and do whatever. Okay, well, let me recommend a place to you for dinner. Around the corner is a place, wonderful woman. It's called La Marrana. No longer exists. Very sad. So she sends us to dinner and says, you know what? And I think tonight there's a girl, former Berkeley student from Chicago, who's going to be singing at this other place. So after dinner, you could go there for drinks and hear some local music, because she knows that's part of what we want to know about Valencia. So we go out to dinner. We walk into this place. Beautiful decor, just this cute little Spanish place with tapas. Chat with the woman who has enough English. We go back and forth trying that. She's super friendly. We mentioned Celia sent us here. Oh, they're wonderful. It's just magical, right? Then we look at the menu. We ask for craft beers, and we look at the menu, and there's ropa vieja on the menu. And I go, what are you doing with this like Latin American, Cuban dish on your tapas menu? And there were a few other things that were not typical tapas. Well, her partner and the chef was Cuban. So we start talking about all that. It's freaking amazing. And we have a wonderful dinner. It's magical. We talk about the life in Valencia with these people and you know, what our goals are and what we'd like to know. And we basically shut the place down. She goes, well, what are y'all doing next? Well, we're going to go hear this girl play. We're going to go see this band play music. Oh, we were going to do that. We'll see you there. So we leave. They come and join us once they've shut down their bar. We listen to the music. It's amazing. We talk more with the women from the restaurant. We meet the girl from Chicago and her bandmates. Some of our new friends go home. The rest of the band and us, we parlay it to the late night place for some, I think it was reggae. We get to know them better. The whole time we're going back and forth between my bad Spanish and everybody, you know, all of these people were speaking enough English to kind of go back and forth. So we're hanging with them. We meet the girl from Chicago. She tells us all about her life here, how she'd been a student at Berkeley School of Music, loved it so much and stuck around. We're like, we want to hear more about that, right? Then our friends from the restaurant that we made, they're turning in for the night. But she tells me, she goes, I have 2 regulars at my restaurant that come in every Saturday night. Will you be here Saturday night? Yes, we will. Come back, have some drinks. They've been living in Spain for years now, and we're on House Hunters International TV show. It's just a show about finding a home in Spain. So we go back to this restaurant that was delicious, have a couple craft beers, meet these 2 guys that have been living in Spain for a while, and they are going to introduce us to their realtor, who's a New Yorker but has been in Valencia for 15 years at this point. So we make that connection as well. We go home, we watch their House Hunters episode, and we see, you know, how they came to choose a home in Valencia, all of that stuff. It was just a magical night. We made new friends. We got email addresses. We got a solution for figuring out where to live, you know, how we could find a home for 9 people. We made connections, and we learned a lot about what, like, the music scene and what might work for us as musicians here in Valencia. It was just one of the most, like, spiritual, magical, miraculous nights of our life, connecting. And not only did it show us how comfortable Valencia could be, how Spanish Valencia is, how much of the culture is here, but it also just gave us the confidence and showed us that, like, on an internal level, we could do this. We could do it. So that's a big part of the story of how we ended up in Valencia, how we chose Valencia that one magical night. And man, I hope you liked it. I hope you'll subscribe if you dug the thing. But I hope that if you're dreaming of doing this, I hope that if you're interested of moving somewhere and starting an adventure, that this inspires you. You can do it. You got to be smart. You got to make a plan. You got to investigate. But I do believe in the miracle of the adventure. And I hope that if you're thinking about moving, that you realize it can be done. All right?